Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and welcome to another edition of RegWatch on GFN.TV here in Warsaw, Poland, for the Global Forum on Nicotine, GFN 22, and with a favorite guest of ours, Lindsey Stroud. How's it going?
Oh, it's going. I made it here, and my bags came. Unfortunately, other people didn't get that, but we're good.
Good. That is great. So you're with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance and a host of other places.
Yes. I'm director of the Consumer Center at TPA, Taxpayers Protection Alliance. It's a nonpartisan think tank based out of Washington, D.C., and I handle harm reduction issues with them and other consumer issues. And then I'm also a board member with the American Vapor Manufacturers Association, and I am currently a visiting fellow with the Independent Women's Forum. So not a lot of time.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. You've certainly been an advocate for vaping. Why?
Why? Oh, okay. Back in 2016, when I was still at the Heartland Institute, I was smoking, and they had me, hey, work on our, vaping portfolio. And I was a former staffer, so it was really intriguing to see all of these small businesses having to get a civics lesson pretty much in government because they were getting, attacked by state, federal, local lawmakers, but then you had to bring in the courts to it. And it was kind of amazing to see this consumer product and these people just trying to help people quit smoking and how much the government was attacking. So I kind of just fell in love with it and fell in love with the people. And then I really have a disdain for lawmakers. So, educating them on stuff they don't know is kind of a fun perk of mine.
Now, that group of small business owners and people who work in that industry, where do they stand now today in the U.S.?
Oh, it's uncertain territories. You're like talking about the vape shops. Yeah. Right now, with the pre-market tobacco applications, everything's kind of in limbo. They were due back in September 2020, and then all these small e-liquid manufacturers had about a year that they could still be on the market without FDA authorization, and then the FDA blanketly denied almost 1 million flavored e-liquid products, and so they all moved to synthetic nicotine. Well, Congress earlier this year passed a law allowing the FDA to regulate synthetic nicotine as a tobacco product, so we had to do PMTAs 2.0 is what I call it, and they have till July right now, so it's in a limbo period. And you still also have about hundreds of thousands of applications that are still pending too with the FDA. So they didn't get authorization, but they also didn't get denied. So it is a regulatory limbo.
Now, come July 15th, I think that's the date, isn't it?
Yeah, for the FDA to actually have to decide on something. Now, because it's not a court case, and I don't want to be quoted on this, I don't think that they're so stuck to that deadline as they were with the September 2020 deadline, because that was tied to the the Oregon organizations is what I call them, going after the FDA for not doing their timetable right with PMTA applications.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't think a lot of people always recognize the fact that it was, the diehard anti-vaping groups led by the American Pediatric Society that forced the FDA into this timeline.
The FDA actually in 2017, the FDA doesn't really have the capacity. If you look at, just the way that their funding works, and they actually had to hire a bunch of people before 2020, but they were kind of recognizing harm reduction back in 2017, and that's where they were, kind of gave lower priority to those products, and that it was going to be 2022 when the actual application was, and so the deadline got pushed by 2 years.
Now we're looking at, tens of billions of dollars overall in the U.S. marketplace. How much of that is going to move to the black market, do you think?
At least 60%, if it hasn't already, because you're already seeing it in other states where they have black markets, but there's also just the counterfeit products that you also see at like C-stores and stuff, that there's not really a lot of like oversight in there. That I always go back to like Eon Smoke, and you had one of the companies that was actually working with customs to try to get these products off the market, but it's going to be all black market. You can't close that door.
And what's going to happen to all the vapors? Not to mention the smokers that are going to lose the potential of vaping, but we're talking about former smokers in the millions that now vape, that are they going to have their devices and their juices yanked away from them?
Well, I think they're still going to be able to have their devices. I just don't. I worry for the small business people that built, this vape shop, and especially if they're playing by the rules. They're subjected to fines if they're selling non-FDA authorized products. So I mean, I know there's been some clever ways that people are kind of going around with it, like whether it's, just selling liquids only and then maybe having nicotine on the side. But thankfully, this industry does have a lot of the small business owners are so dedicated to the fact of helping people quit smoking that they're not going to. They will, stand to be arrested, which nobody's going to get arrested, but they will stand to have a lot of fines just to keep helping people quit smoking. And it's really unfortunate that, it's kind of going back to the prohibition days and speakeasies in a sense that you're going to end up having, and probably some weird shops. I mean, I've talked to somebody in one state that they talked about, switching everything, saying it was CBD, and, to kind of do a workaround. And I'm not endorsing that, people, okay? So do not take that as like free legal advice or anything. But it is really unfortunate that that's where we're at this point. And it really also, if you think about it, kind of really harms the whole issue of tobacco harm reduction when you have to make it so black market and so secretive, for these people to get these products that are safer than combustible cigarettes, which are available at every C-store. So it's kind of sad.
What's been happening to the smoking rate in the U.S. since there's been such a crackdown on these alternative nicotine devices?
Well, right now, the smoking rate's still going down, thank God. Now, we did see last year that there was an increase in cigarette sales, and so I'm still waiting for the I do a lot of work on the CDC data, the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance Survey, and the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And so I'm waiting for 2021 to come out, especially to look at those states. Now, you did see with San Francisco and youth vaping, when they cracked down on flavors back in 2018, you did see an increase in both vaping, but also you saw an increase in combustible cigarette use among high school kids in San Francisco from 2017 and 2019. And there is that real possibility that you kind of see it. And we're also, if you think about right now, we are in it's a bear market officially. We're probably heading for a recession. And so I think that's going to also impact what you're going to see on smoking rates, because you saw it in 2011 when smoking rates went back up for some reason.
Is the U.S. a mess?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that one. The regulatory agencies with how e-cigarettes are regulated is a mess. The FDA doesn't have the proper tools to be able to even promote tobacco harm reduction. It also seems that they're so busy trying to save the world. I mean, we're sitting here, they want to ban menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars now, and kids aren't even using those. I mean, you have lowest, level of smoking rates among youth, and you do need to address youth use of e-cigarette products, but you're sitting here worrying about menthol cigarettes. So I don't really know exactly what the FDA and our public health agencies are trying to do. It's definitely not offer adults options that are not quit or die or pharmaceuticals.
What's the mentality, do you think, that's driving these efforts to eradicate nicotine use?
Well, they don't want to eradicate cigarettes. I mean, nobody's talking about getting rid of cigarettes. I think that there's a lot of money to be made in treating people with smoking-related illnesses, and also in the States, I think the United States probably is one of the, when you think about globally, yeah, you have some countries that do have monopolies and they have state-owned tobacco, companies, but I think the United States is really, depends on tobacco and combustible cigarettes, whether it's, settlement payments from the 1998 Master Settlement Agreement or tobacco taxes. And there's a lot of money in that.
So I'm reading here a Wall Street Journal story from just the last day or so. Biden administration to pursue rule requiring less nicotine in U.S. cigarettes.
Yeah, but they can't go down to zero. That's in the Tobacco Control Act. You can't completely eliminate nicotine. But yeah, they want to do less nicotine, and that is they've only approved one of those cigarettes, and they don't even know what the market is. I think it's only going to go out into 3 markets at first, so you don't even know really what the efficacy is of it. Yet the FDA denied, millions of vapor products that had been used by people for at least 10 years. So I think honestly, it's just fodder. I think it's vaping. Oh, we got to do something about vaping. Oh, we got to do something about cigarettes now. And I think Biden's kind of throwing that into his policy, not necessarily even addressing smoking. It's just part of the, what is it, moonshoot, or that's moonshot, yeah. So he's anything to get him away from inflation and gas prices. So
in a way, isn't this just tinkering around the edges?
Yes. Well, yeah, the FDA, it's really unfortunate right now. It's June 2022. We've had 6 applications approved for e-cigarette products out of millions. And also, e-cigarettes came to the United States in 2007. So it's like, you've had 15 years of people using these products, and it's still not good enough for the FDA. Consumers actually using them, consumers quitting smoking, using these products, and it's really sad.
Now, I notice you used the term consumers, and that is used, not a lot, but it's used. Why is it that maybe the advocates for vaping and the enemies of vaping seem to both, in some cases, ignore the consumer aspect?
Because they hate people who smoke.
But even on the advocacy side, though.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I noticed that when I first started. I was a smoker when I first started it. So, and you got the disdain, and you were looking at these people like, but you used to smoke. I mean, why are you coming after me? And I'm on the part with, I think it's great that tobacco companies are actually being forced to change. You do see that in the advocacy world, actually, that, we're not big tobacco, and that this, we can't work with big tobacco. But I always looked at it like, you forced big tobacco to change to change their product portfolios. Just looking at the states, 2007 was the first e-cigarettes introduced, and it wasn't until 2011 when a big tobacco company got into e-cigarettes when Lorillard purchased Bloom. And then the next year it was Altria and Reynolds that had done their own e-cigarette products, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, when you think about big tobacco, these bogeymen, and wow, that these consumers change their product, but it would be anything in any other industry. If your consumers are going one way, you're going to do that, and you see it in other industries. You saw it with soda companies. They're offering a lot of reduced, lower sugary beverages. Even with electronic vehicle manufacturers, bringing consumers want safer products. It's kind of amazing with this space that the people who are, the companies that are responsible for the harms of smoking aren't able to bring up a new product. That there's this, and it would be like telling, Volkswagen, you can't make an electric vehicle, you can only use a gas engine.
Is there no room in the heart of an anti-vapor for redemption for big tobacco?
No, not according to them, which is unfortunate because everybody's been able to kind of skate away, and I think tobacco did. They paid their time, and they're still paying. And especially in the States, when you look at the master settlement agreement, and yeah, there is no redemption for them, unfortunately, and it's really sad because you start seeing that argument being applied to other consumer industries, and unfortunately, you're never going to have another thing like the master settlement agreement for any of the ailments that other goods might have, other companies might have caused. But
do consumers of vaping products, in general, by and large, understand that they're a consumer group?
No. I think some of them, yeah, but I don't think they understand how big and powerful they are, and how powerful their quit smoking story is. I was a former staffer, and I have done, this year alone, a lot of state testimony and everything, and there's nothing more powerful than telling your lawmaker, I'm 55 years old, I smoked for 20 years, and I tried everything, and the only thing that was able for me to quit smoking was, raspberry flavored e-liquid at 3 milligram nicotine. And this is the device I'm using. I mean, most of them don't know it, and it's really sad because I saw it this year with lawmakers. I mean, they're still going out with popcorn lung. The Attorney General sent the letter to the FDA on June 11th, urging FDA to pretty much deny all the synthetic nicotine products, the synthetic PMTAs.
And they pointed to popcorn lung.
Oh, they brought up popcorn lung. Yeah, 2022. They still bring up popcorn lung. Which is kind of sad that our organizations, that we haven't been able to change that narrative yet, especially when you look at the anti-groups. So, they all have the buzzwords, and if you follow Stroud 89 at Twitter, you can see me live tweeting some of these hearings, and it really just gets really boring when they start coming up, because it's like, well, the guy sat there and said the same thing 5 minutes prior. They have all their buzzwords, lifetime addiction and nicotine, Big Tobacco's playbook. I can't think of all of them off my head, but there's like about 10 of them that you're going to hear it anytime that one of these people come on. They're going to drop those words down.
Nicotine harms developing brains.
Oh yeah, nicotine harm, and that came from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and our new, FDA director, CTP director.
So let me ask you this. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, is public health being malicious?
Yeah. Well, I don't think being malicious. I think that there's a lot of disdain from the tobacco companies, and that this is some idea that tobacco is going to hook a new generation, which it really isn't. It's a consumer-driven product disruption, and you don't really. I mean, it's kind of like what the iPod did for the Walkman, and the way that we do music and everything. It completely changed the way that people can get nicotine, and also thinking of the way that people, the quit or die. It's, they know you can use nicotine in a safe and less harmful manner. You don't have to just quit smoking and, be happy and free and everything. So I think that's what it is. I think they're mostly afraid and that they don't have control over it. I think because it's not on the FDA's part of their pharmaceutical part, I think that's what it is. Because if you look at like even the WHO isn't against harm reduction. It's in tobacco harm reduction. They're not for consumer tobacco harm reduction. They want it to be done in like a medical, you go to a doctor and you're prescribed it, which I don't agree with because it negates tobacco harm reduction, and cigarettes aren't, handed out that way. You can go to a C-store and go buy cigarettes. You should be able to have less harmful alternatives.
When I quit smoking, when I looked at vaping at first, evaluated it in 2015 to consider quitting smoking, 2 packs a day, the key thing that I looked at was the availability and sustainability. I literally stood in a vape store and looked at all these hundreds of different flavors, and I went, okay, this is going to be around. I can trust that this will be here.
Yeah.
And in Canada, like, stores are closed.
Yeah, I know. We wrote on your guys' consultation, and yeah, and you guys always look at United States. I really hate that you've ally, the shot heard around the world, and we have to ban everything now. Yeah, that is sad. That's what I looked at vaping too. Thankfully, I do know people, so if I have to go into the black market, they can help me mix flavors. And I think that's what I have to be for people, unfortunately, in some states. But we have states that have banned flavored e-cigs. They can still get them. It's just I wouldn't really trust them.
I mean, these are not issues that an upright, and respectable consumer should have to deal with.
No.
Right?
No.
And it's weird because, I can get my brand of cigarettes anywhere, at any corner, in any city, at any time.
Around the globe. Around
the globe. Yeah, I smoke Rothmans, so pretty much I can get them anywhere.
Yep.
So if I'm going to have to choose between the hassle that comes with vaping, the stigmatization of vaping is almost greater than smoking.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, I was in an airport smoking lounge. They have them over here in Europe, people. And it was kind of amazing because we're vaping and you kind of got the looks and everything. And Europe's really weird too, at least I've noticed. The young people, I see a lot more young people smoking versus actually seeing them vaping. And I know one of my colleagues, Martin Cullip, is in the UK. And so he's talked about that because of the way that they've been able to market e-cigarettes as a cessation tool, that you actually see, it's old people vape, not young people. So, but I guess now disposables have entered I just learned today that disposables have entered the UK market. So they're expecting, a wave of youth use shortly, of course. We saw it in the States, so.
In the States, a lot of the disposables, when they hit the market, they played a big role because it was post-Juul. So Juul had its effect, and then the disposables came in. That has led to a lot of state action. And you've been, embroiled in a couple of them. There was Connecticut, and then Colorado.
Colorado was the big one. That was the one that everyone kind of, Connecticut was going on for years. So, I mean, this was I think the 4th time that and they had actually gutted it out, that it didn't include menthol cigarettes, because it started as a full flavor ban. So, menthol cigarettes, cigars, e-cigarettes. And then I think it got gutted out to, it was flavor ban, but age-restricted stores. So, you know, and that's the one thing with these groups in the United States, they don't compromise. It's like all or nothing. So, and Colorado, actually, that was a full flavor ban, and it actually did start, like they had, when it first got out of one of its committees, it did get amended, so age-restricted stores would be okay, and then, you know, the groups came in, but there was a lot of lobbying on that, and a lot of 12-hour-long hearings, and you know, those poor bill sponsors. I don't know why they even thought about pulling it up. But yeah, the youth vaping, even though youth vaping has gone down, and Colorado is really interesting that you brought up, because they had just published their, they do a state survey, Healthy Kids Colorado survey. And when I was testifying, you know, they do it every other year. So they had 2019, and then 2021 was going to come out this summer, and it just came out yesterday. And so that was, you know, you need to wait to see these state numbers, because we've already seen national numbers where youth vaping has declined, but the groups aren't talking about that. You know, they're burying it, or if you see, like, when they bring up the numbers, it's like, oh, I'm going to use 1% of 1% and make it seem like it's everybody, I mean, it's really not. It's unfortunate, but yeah, in regards to Colorado, actually, youth vaping is down. Yeah, unfortunately, they do, you know, what I did see the numbers, and I didn't have them in front of me, but I think it was about 2% change increase. The reasons why they vape, flavoring went up as a reason, but it's still not the #1 reason. So
vaping had some wins, though.
Oh, vaping, yeah, it's gone down. I think with the youth vaping epidemic of 2019, and that's, yeah, if you look at the youth survey, so 2015 is like when they start really looking at it. 2017, you actually see a decrease in most of the states and at the national level, at least with the CDC survey. And then 2019, yeah, you saw a huge increase in everything, but now it's gone back down to 2015 levels, and if not, like 2017 levels where it was lower. I think it was a fad. The cool kids are doing it. I'm going to do it. Look at this new device. I think there was a couple devices out there that probably could have reined in a little bit sooner than what they did, but, you know, they did do the appropriate actions on some of the stuff that they did with limiting their, you know, varieties and options out there when they realized that there was a problem.